506, the day you gave us.
Psalm 113. Alleluia. You faithful of our God, give praise. Praise the name of our God. Blessed be the name of our God from now and for all times. From the rising of the sun to its setting, praise be the name of our God. You are high over all nations, Adonai. Your glory transcends the heavens. Who is like you, Adonai, our God? Enthroned so high, you need to stoop to see the sky and the earth. You raise the poor from the dust and lift the needy from the dung heap to give them a place at the table with rulers, with the leaders of your people. You give the childless couple a home filled with the joy of many children. Alleluia.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Steve, for those that I have not met, and I'm part of our church's stewardship team or committee. We're a handful of members working in tandem with the church council and finance team to help manage the resources of our church, plan for a long-term fundraising, and in general, foster generosity within our congregation. In my short participation so far, I've learned about the myriad ways of charitable giving that I'd like to share with you, and hopefully some of them resonate with you today. Cash. Who doesn't like cash? Melissa and I, we give monthly, and we give in a way that works for us. We're hesitant to call it tithings because it's not a percentage of our income in that sense of the word. But it is something we do schedule monthly, so we don't have to think about it. unless that's not the case, Melissa's not here. I don't know if she presses a button every month, but it's an approach that works for us, and there is a way to do it and find a way that, an amount that works for you, a schedule that works for you, and I just wanted to share the way that Melissa and I do that. I guess I'm less hesitant now to call it tithings because I'm seeing the way that is being used, and it helps fund our ministry, take care of our building, which is really important, and our church's charitable outreach. If you filed for your personal tax returns this year and got a little refund, consider sharing in that blessing, and then by all means go out and get yourself a pina colada. You deserve it. Now, while cash is a common gift, you can also donate many other assets, sometimes with significant tax advantages. These can include stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate, life insurance, retirement accounts, coins, toys, stamps, and other kinds of collections. Basically, anything that can be valued and sold can usually be accepted as a gift. Your old car. Twice now, Melissa and I have donated our old used cars to radio stations. Once to TMD, a station that unfortunately no longer exists, and another one to WYPR. And while public radio could certainly use all the charitable resources it can, consider doing something like that for our church as one of the ways of charitable giving. It's an organizations exist out there that can sell your car to people that then sell its parts, and the lion's share of the donation comes to the charity of your choice. We have Coors 14 is going to need a car soon, and we have two very old Honda CRVs. We're going to consider doing that with one of them. North Baltimore Mennonite Church now has a relationship with financial advisors called Evernance in Ohio. They're a faith-based financial services company. Their charitable service entity, Everence Foundation, which was originally called Mennonite Foundation, can provide counsel for planned charitable giving to members that are yearning to make a difference in the world by supporting the causes that are important to them. And that's important to know that with their help, they can help guide you through the process to give to the charities that are important to you, not what they're telling you to. Family endowments, such as a bequest, is a gift of personal property, such as cash or stocks or something, and they can act as a legal transfer of assets after the donor's death, allowing them to leave a legacy, and also while reducing real estate taxes and tax liability to your surviving family. Here's a unique thing I've learned, that you can actually donate your home and continue to live in it as in your lifetime, and it doesn't go to the church, but it's a income producing thing that is much like a charitable remainder trust, which is the last example I give you. It's like an asset, like a real estate, and Evernance can convert it into an income producing asset that provides you with income up until your death, and then the property can go to the charity of your choice. So these are just a few of the ways. There's so many other ones. If I have piqued your interest in learning more about it, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or some of the others that are part of the Stewardship Committee. I would just say that as a church with a wonderfully wise, seasoned, compassionate, active, affirming, inclusive, and growing congregation, I'm grateful for some of the founding members for all their faithfulness, their years of service, and their actions towards social justice. I love seeing the new families popping up and new attendees that are coming here and finding comfort in our doors. And I want to support that, and I hope you can too. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions for me or the stewardship team. Thank you so much.
Children pre-K through kindergarten are dismissed for Children's Church at this time. Thank you, Steve. That's a tough segue, but The theme is flourishing together and maybe imagining some new ways of doing things. The next song is Beyond a Dying Sun, which invites us to think about the reign of Christ and the transformation of the world as we know it. And none of these words are about the moon, but as I was singing it in preparation, thinking about it, the images from Artemis 2 came to mind over and over and over. The thing that has always been there, but that we can newly imagine, newly see, and perhaps newly embrace. 416, Beyond a Dying Sun.
Our second reading this morning is from the book of Acts, chapter 2, beginning at the 42nd verse. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayers. Awe came upon everyone, because many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. All who believed were together and had all things in common. They would sell their possessions and goods and distribute the proceeds to all, as any had need. Day by day, as they spent much time together in the temple, they broke bread at home and ate their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having the goodwill of all the people. And day by day, the Lord added to their number those who were being saved. The word of the Lord.
Thanks, Toby.
Yesterday, about 20 of us gathered here for a listening day to kind of talk together about what we see God doing and how we're responding, our individual participation and responses to that. And I was struck by the fact that people arrived and immediately began helping set up. We were kind of running a little bit behind because of setup. We had an event here in the morning. But as people walked in the door, they immediately went and started grabbing a chair or a table or helping put the food out. And then we shared a meal, and we had reflection and discussion. And then everybody cleaned up and put away the things and made sure the dishes were washed and put away and the tables were back where they needed to be. And that was just normal. Like, that's kind of how it happens, that there is this sense of helpfulness and doing what is needed to be done, and everyone does a part. And everyone doesn't do the same thing. Some people do this, and some people do that, and some people catch up with someone at the same time. And like all of that is okay because there's this spirit of care and service that sort of pervades the community and the people as people come. In a way, it's who we are. It's how we do things, which is one of the things that we talked about yesterday, is who are we and how do we do things. Sunday morning is very similar. From the moment people arrive in this building and start turning things on and getting things ready, preparing, leading, and you'll see throughout this morning, any number of people are involved. There's several in the back. There's several in the front. There's people with the children. There were people downstairs. It's really a kind of a beautiful thing, and it is something we reflected on yesterday, that there is a lot of participation. It's actually part of our DNA. Like, you can come and just observe and be here, of course, but not too long, and you'll probably be doing something or get asked to help with something. So our text this morning from Acts 2, 42 to 47 that Toby read really is one of these most compelling pictures of the early faith community. It's one that lots of churches and people will preach and point to and name things for, do songs about, right? Because it's this very compelling image. Not the like all the rules and stuff that nobody, I mean, I don't want to dig into all that, but like, wow, how great to see this joy and this growth. Like, don't we also want joy and growth like we see in this picture there? And it fits so well with this flourishing series that we're doing. Like, certainly that church was flourishing. So this morning, as part of this kind of series of talking about what does flourishing look like for us together, I'm talking about flourishing through sharing. So I'm curious, I'll just do kind of maybe a show of hands, but how many here have lived in some sort of intentional or shared community at some point in your life? Like, I know a bunch. So yeah, several. Interesting. Of various sorts, right? There's all kinds of those sorts of things. I was at a university where that was like a high value, and so they created lots of housing experiments, really, and opportunities that you wouldn't find at other kinds of universities, because they're like, this is really important to try to do life together, so how can we set up housing that way? And then many of you will know that I also lived for a number of years in other countries in sort of communal living and all that sort of thing, living with other people in different forms. And as we think about that and as we talk about that, I'm curious, when you think of like an ideal community, what pictures come to your mind? What does it look like? I mean, you can't answer that. You can answer that during the sermon response time. But I ask that question because in a way that picture that's in your mind sort of shapes how you understand the conversation and what we're talking about. And those look different, right? So I'll just give you an example, right, of sometimes, I'll just use this, people live in one big house, right? People have done that. People in this room have done that. Live in one big house, and you delegate out the chores, and you all put your money in, and you pay for the stuff. That's one way to do it. Other ways are everybody has a little bit of their own stuff, and then some that's in common. I knew friends that bought a giant piece of property and put individual houses on it, also with shared space. And then they farmed that land. And so they were able to use the farming to help provide some of the income to run the thing. So all those are ways, right? I'm just saying that there's lots of ways. There's not just one. Whatever it is that you picture, it's not the only one. But there's reasons why we picture and don't picture certain kinds of things. And so here today we're given one picture. This Acts text that Toby read is just one picture of what it could look like. And it describes it, right? That they devoted themselves to teaching and fellowship, breaking of bread, and prayers. That's kind of the four descriptors that are given there. And we were talking about this yesterday during a listening day. To notice that those are kind of stated, that's an interesting set of things to be stated side by side. Because we don't often maybe think of all those things as being in the same category. The apostles' teaching, fellowship, the breaking of bread, and prayer. So there's like very spiritual things, there's very common things. In fact, the most common things, right? Sharing meals, sharing stuff. Because each is an experience, an opportunity to experience God together. This is kind of where we went in our conversation yesterday. I won't recap all of that, but this whole idea that like we can experience God in the meal together as much as we do in the worship service. And then it says, right, in this text that Toby read, that awe came on everyone, the people around, because many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles, and all who believed were together and had everything in common. We talked about that a little yesterday. They would sell their possessions and goods and distribute the proceeds as any had need. And so people were coming. People were coming to that sort of thing. It's hard for us to picture. It's hard for us to picture living that same kind of thing because many of us will have families or jobs or a home that's ours. We have our own interests, frankly, and hobbies and life things. It's a very anti-Western, individualistic kind of picture, isn't it? And that's the world that we live in. It's very counter to the world that we live in. Now, one thing to note about this story, this context, this community, is they sort of dropped everything and did this. One reason was because they thought the world was going to end. They literally thought that they were in the last days, like Jesus had died and resurrected and said, I'm coming back soon. And so they were like, cool, then we are going to get rid of all of our stuff and just pay attention and live the way we're supposed to live. And obviously that didn't happen the way they expected pretty quickly. And so then they started changing gears. And so we read about, and this is important to say, like we read about the early church throughout what we call the New Testament. There's lots of descriptions that don't sound exactly like this. So every faith community didn't look like this, and faith communities didn't look like this a decade later. So that's just important to note. Not that it's right or wrong, but like that's not the only way it can look. That's what I want us to hear. It's not the only way that it can look. It's not the only way it looks in the book of Acts. It's not the only way that it looks in the New Testament. The other reason, or one of the other reasons, that they lived that way wasn't just that they thought the world was going to end. And this I really appreciated in a commentator that I was reading this week. They lived that way because the way the empire in which they lived caused it to be a necessity. The Roman Empire was harmful to the people they occupied. They were taking away those people's rights. Those people were becoming impoverished because the Roman Empire was draining the resources from this place. So God's Spirit is creating a community that countered the empire. Like that is really significant, that this community was birthed in a way that allowed it to function opposite of what the empire was trying to do to people by creating an alternative. The commentator said, Acts presents a community that resists the hierarchical, dominating, exploitative, and violent organizing principles of Rome. You could insert the name of any country there, I believe, or empire. And quickly, the next stories in that we won't read now is that they very quickly would become victims of local and provincial and imperially aligned violence. So they lived that way counter, and immediately that caused friction with the greater society. But this community prioritized tending to those with need, even as they were being vulnerable themselves. And this is one of the things that's really beautiful about this community. It wasn't like a community that was so well off and could just kind of dish out to all the people that needed. They were being actively persecuted and were caring for one another, which I think is how it happens a lot of the time. And that's why these principles can still be true, even if the expressions of it look different for us. The principles can still be true. So I was thinking about sharing here, sharing for us, and what that means for us as a community. And I'll refer to, and I think there's a slide. Yeah, great. Okay, thank you. It might be on 3 slides now that I look at it. So we have this kind of what we call our church covenant. It's like our description of who we are and how we try to be a community together, what's important to us. And there's a section in there of that's kind of our faith is grown out in community. Grown out, I don't think that's right. Our faith is grown in community. And then you can see there's a couple little statements. I just want to highlight these really fast. We make ourselves available to one another and acknowledge our need for each other. So this is more of a kind of a relational thing. We come as we are, encouraging and accepting questions, vulnerability, and honesty. That's the feelings one. And then we believe the Spirit empowers us as a community to pray, to worship, to interpret Scripture, discern God's invitation, lead one another through mutual accountability, sort of like we were just reading about in this text here, and that all are gifted for ministry and our shared life of faith. And then the last one, thanks, Josie. We offer ourselves and our time, resources, and talents for the common good. And we grow through practicing hospitality, generosity, simplicity, care, service, and forgiveness. So this is sort of like the expanded version of what we just looked about in that Acts text, or how we see it being lived out for us and in our context. And I wonder, as you hear those things, or as you think about this Acts text and what they were doing, what does sharing, where do you see sharing? Where do you experience it? Maybe you even write that. I know there's a place that says notes, because I saw the insert. Like, write that down. That would be a good thing to pay attention to. Or during the sermon response time. I mean, I'd be really happy to hear examples of how we have experienced that. I can think of a number, and I will skip over them for now. But I think we mentioned some, and I think even what Steve was talking about up here earlier is sort of us putting our stuff together and trying to do stuff. We do that. We provide mutual aid for people in need. That is something that we do. So like this early church, we live faithfully together, I think, or we try, a life of sharing. And I think people find something special in that, a place where God seems to be at work, where things are different in a way that is needed. Like, there's something to this. I'll just add this caveat. It was really an interesting thing that I read. I would love to dive into it deeper, but I thought it was a really funny start to it. 3,000 new believers may sound like an evangelist's dream, but think of the chaos. And they kind of give the example of like, how would you feed all those people? And so I was thinking of having lunch yesterday. Like, we had 20 to feed. It was no problem. But imagine people every day coming. And all these people are coming from different places. So they all have like different languages and different customs and different expectations, even some distinct food preferences, like all that kind of stuff. And so suddenly you have all these people and you're trying to manage what that looks like. Daily, it said, daily. And so this idea, like, how do we be a community that is somehow got these core values and how we do stuff, but is also open to new people coming? I think this church does it pretty well. And I think those of you who have been around for a long time have said things to me that lead me to believe that as well, that like there is this core thing of who we are and how we do things, but there's also some flexibility and fluidity, right? So like, this is a really concrete example, but we didn't used to have Zoom, and it became a necessity. Cecilia, you pointed this out yesterday, as a matter of fact, and it became a necessity during COVID. But it's become an opportunity for us to allow people to be able to be part of the service who aren't here physically for any number of reasons. That's something that's changed. Like, we didn't used to do that, obviously, and it's added to us. So we still are able to interact with one another, but we've added this component, and we still try to play with that. How can we better be interactive, right? Do what we do in this room, but for the people who are on Zoom, for example. So that's just there's a million of those examples of like, how do we flex while still being true to who we are? And I think that, in a sense, that is part of the role of the Spirit, and part of us being open to what God is saying to us is how do we adjust, stay who we are, but also allow other people to be part and be changed by the people who are a part now. So for each of us, I guess the question is like, what does it mean? Like, how do I give and receive of this kind of sharing that we're talking about? And we yesterday were talking about like, what is my time? What is my availability? How can I participate? What are my limits? It's easy to think of things like money, right? I mean, in a sense, it's very tangible. Like, I have this much, or I don't have this much. I can give this, I can't give that. Other things like participation and skills and knowledge, they're more intangible. When I worked in South Africa, we talked a lot about relational capital. You know people that other people don't know, and you could introduce them to those people and create opportunities. Like, that's something we don't talk about very often, and everybody in this room has that. Anyway, lots of examples of what might it look like. And I guess the other question is, what gets in the way? That's more a personal question for each of us. Like, what gets in the way of me being part of giving and receiving? And there's lots of reasons. That was one of the questions on our forum yesterday, and people are like, my health, or time, or those kinds of things are very real, and those are real. We know that. Peter Riedman, one of the commentators I was reading this week, said, community is part of the good news. That really stuck with me. That part of what God says is like what is hopeful and what can be is actually creating an example of what can be that we get to be part of. The Holy Spirit established this community as a means to demonstrate the good news. I'll end with this, that you can think of this in two different ways, both of which are helpful for maybe different ones of us. In a sense, it's described as a return to Eden. A community can be a return to Eden, where the first humans had everything that they needed for life, provided for God in relationship with one another and the things around them. I think, too, that we could think of the Lord's Prayer and the things that we pray for being demonstrated, seeing God at work, where everyone has enough, where there are sharing and healthy relationships, and where we're encouraging one another in our faith journeys. So that's, in a way, a extremely brief summation of the Lord's Prayer, but that's what we see in this text, and that's what I see in this church, and I think that's what we want to see in communities and in our lives. So I offer that as some thoughts. I'm going to pause. Paul's going to play something as you think and consider, and then we'll have an opportunity for some response if you'd like to ask questions or give your thoughts or feedback from some of what I've raised.